You read the title correct. We are never going to pay for a single website ever again. Whether you're currently hosted on WordPress, Shopify, Webflow, anything, we're going to make it completely free. If you just found this video or found me, hello, I'm Corbin, and this is lesson 2 of never paying for a website again. Now, what is super cool about this series is that I'm going to provide you with a ton of resources. So now that we're jumping into lesson 2, this is what we're going to go over in today's video. Taking a step back, if you have zero to little coding experience, don't worry. Trust me. I got a ton of resources, and on top of that, this isn't 2016, y'all. You're not going to see me sit here and code for an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours. There's a new way to code, and you're going to learn how to do that. Therefore, in this video, we're going to do these things. Now, if any of that doesn't make sense to you, don't worry, as I'm going to explain it to you. And on top of that, you're going to get a couple things in the description down below. The first thing I'm going to put in the description is this Google Doc, which is actually going to walk you step by step of everything that I do in today's video. On top of that, you can just copy stuff over, which is really, really cool. The second thing I'm going to leave in the description down below is a ChatGPT link that is specialized for this specific context. What do you mean by that, Corbin? Let me show you. The whole purpose of this chat is for lesson 2. So everything you're going to learn today, if you run into an error, you can, of course, comment it down below. See if anyone else can help you out. But alternatively, you can talk to ChatGPT now. I've specialized it to really help you in this specific use case. Because we all know what's very frustrating is you follow a tutorial online. It's 30 minutes in, 40 minutes in. You get an error and you're like, how the heck do I get past this error? Well, guess what? I gave you the solution here. Both are going to be put in the description down below. Both are going to be free. So make sure to leave a like right off the bat, because you already know you're going to get a ton of value. And this is only lesson 2. Let's jump in. Welcome back to lesson 2 of never having to pay for a website again. And I'll be honest with y'all, based off the reaction I'm getting from lesson 1, 2 things have become very clear to me. The first thing that's become very clear to me is that people like this kind of content. And people want to watch this kind of content. I was actually kind of hesitant doing this kind of content because of the fact that it is going to be a little code heavy. But I think the way I teach and I think the way I'm going to show you to get around the code stuff is going to make it so easy that you're going to feel like how am I even coding right now? But you are coding. And then the second thing I realized is that, yeah, if this goes the direction I think it's going to go, I can see that there's a lot of people that want to see very high value content like this, where basically I'm eliminating an entire expense from your business, or alternatively creating an opportunity to create a website for free. Corbin, you're speaking too fast. What's going? Put me down to 0.75 speed. A lot of my viewers like me speaking fast. Past that, though, it's made it clear to me that, yes, an AI software playlist will come out where I show you how to build out a front end and a back end and basically create your own AI software. Like, not a GPT wrapper, because that's lame. I'm sorry if any of y'all made a GPT wrapper, but like an actual specialized use case for a AI and software. So keep in touch with this channel. Make sure to subscribe. This isn't always a code heavy type of channel, although it seems like I need to branch out a little bit in this sector because there is a lot of people not really making content in this realm. So I guess I'll fulfill this need. In this video, though, we're just going to show you how to set up. So the end goal of this video is I'm going to get a website like this. I'm going to go to make sure I can't really zoom in here. But basically, you're going to have it so it's pushed to a very specific URL that's your own hosting URL. On top of that, we're going to be able to launch it within our own local machine. This will make more sense as we go. By the end of this video, you're going to have an understanding of how to set up a project within VS Code that's going to allow you to basically add text, and that's going to show up on a web page. May sound simple on the surface, and honestly, it kind of is once you see the steps towards it, but you're going to learn a lot here. Last little thing here. If you want to see lesson 1, this goes over the what, how, and why I'm even doing all this and gives you an indication of the cost you save and any other cost that would be associated with creating out a website of this manner. I'll link it up there. Let's jump in. The first major thing that we're going to do together right now is create ChatGPT custom instructions. This is imperative. This is going to give you the ability to, if you run into walls, if you run into issues, if you're like, what the heck does this mean? You can paste it into your ChatGPT. It will already be lasered in for your specific context, and you'll get better answers. In the Google Doc, I provide example instructions, and these are going to be the ones I use personally. Let me go over them line by line so you can really understand why we do what we do. It goes without saying you're going to need a ChatGPT Plus account. That's just part of the game. In theory, you could use this on a free plan. It's just going to take you a lot longer if you have more questions when dealing with this kind of stuff. For now, though, let's go to custom instructions. We're going to go up to our profile here, hit customize ChatGPT. I'm going to go ahead and clear this, and then we'll add it one by one together. First thing you need to understand about custom instructions is that if you are running into issues with ChatGPT when it comes to why are you talking about this right now, you get into random rabbit holes. Like, don't go that far, ChatGPT. I wasn't even talking about Pluto. We were talking about Saturn. This is what you need to leverage. So the first thing we're going to go over is what would you like ChatGPT to know about you to provide better responses? Let's go ahead and paste this over. And that's the reason I'm leaving this Google Doc, is because it's easier for you just to paste and, copy and paste. It's annoying when people use sign up to my free newsletter and then get this Google Doc. No. It's just there. This is the instructions for my specific context. If you don't know my specific context and you just skip to lesson 2, basically I'm taking this entire landing page and I'm making it my own, and I don't have to pay $18 anymore. Cha-ching. For you, you're going to basically fill in your context, but let's go line by line. For me, I am creating a Web Cafe AI landing page using Visual Studio Code on macOS, primarily with React for the front end and Firebase as the back end. For you, simply put in the use case of the type of website you're creating. This can be long, this can be short. For me, straight to the point. Number 2, using Visual Studio Code on macOS, put in your operating system, or using Windows. This is actually important because of some of the shorthands and short keys is going to be really relevant to your operating system. For me, it's macOS. Also, the actual area you're putting the code in, which I think all y'all would just use Visual Code Studio or Visual Studio Code. Next, we're going to identify what we're using for the front end and what we're using the back end. Corbin, what's a front end? This is a front end. Like what we're seeing right here and what we interact with is the front end. What's a back end? If I were to save this, that communicates to a data thing or a database or data structure in the back end. A lot of these lessons are going to be dedicated to the front end, but it's still good to identify the back end. For example, in this context, we're going to use Firebase for hosting. What do you mean hosting, Corbin? Basically, where our website's going to exist on the internet. So we're going to identify we're using Firebase as the back end. The primary goal is to make an optimized landing page. That's the goal. What's your goal? My coding style preferences remain the same with the parentheses around parameters and arrow functions and minimal spaces inside object braces. The reason I add that personally is I noticed that at least in the past, there was issues when it came to coding with J6 and React, and ChatGPT was giving some bad code in the sense that they weren't giving the correct brackets. So I added that. That's also good for you to know that if you're ever getting bad outputs or the code and you're noticing a reoccurring issue, you can go ahead and identify stuff like that. But for the most part, you won't ever have to deal with bad code. The new project directory is CD Coffee Fuel. What does that mean, Corbin? Don't worry. This is going to be where you reference it in terminal when we reference it later. What do you mean terminal? Basically, terminal is how we're going to, send commands to GitHub, send commands to VS Code, send commands to Firebase. What do you mean by that? Don't worry. We'll get into it. All you need to know, it's your directory. What's your directory? Where we store our code branches. What's a code branch? Basically, all the files of code. And then finally, put in your GitHub username. And for me, it's Coffee Fuel Bump. Now, before I go to how would you like ChatGPT respond, let's just get some stuff out of the way real quick. Make sure to download VS Code onto your system. For me, it's macOS. For you, it might be Windows. Download it. Go to github.com, put in an email, choose your profile name. That's what I referenced in the ChatGPT custom instructions. Choose a profile name, and that's all you have to do for now. github.com, VS Code, all for now. Okay? Now let's go over how we would want ChatGPT to respond. So let's go to copy over my current directions. Of course, this is interchangeable as well. Personally, this is how I like it. Begin with one sentence summary of the main goal for clarity. I appreciate concise step-by-step instructions tailored to the specific code or files I'm currently working on. This is helpful, so it doesn't just start rambling and doesn't lose track of the underlying code we actually care about. Please provide code snippets or configurations that are directly relevant to Visual Studio Code, good, macOS, React, and Firebase. Input-output depending on whatever your situation is. Adhere to my coding style preferences. When referencing external resources or suggesting solutions, consider the context provided about my project and its current state, and Firebase integrations. This is important. You don't want to be 3 weeks down the road and all of a sudden it's asking you to install Firebase again. ChatGPT, I already installed Firebase. What are we doing here? That's annoying. This solves it. Before providing any step-by-step instructions, first ask for clarification on the specific updates or changes I'd like to make. Avoid making assumptions. That's big. About installed packages or completed steps unless explicitly mentioned. And then just as a fun one, talk to me like Jarvis from Iron Man with an emphasis on maintaining code consistency and clarity. That's our custom instructions. Those are valuable. Set them for your use case. Save. Our custom instructions are done. Now let's start the fun. Stop talking, Corbin. You've been talking too much. Just get going. All right, I got it. One last thing I want to point out before we get going here is make sure to click that Google Doc / click the link that you'll see for this ChatGPT chat. Why are you telling me that, Corbin? Because if you get stuck with anything I'm about to show you today, use this. Ask it questions, put in the specific error, and give it context of your specific situation. And if it gets really bad, send a comment down. Someone to help you out. Let's jump in. Here we go. We got a brand new VS Code here. Nothing's happened to it. Let's create our directory. This is how we're going to reference it on our local machine. And on top of that, how we're going to reference it later on when calling Git or GitHub. Don't click off. I know. You're seeing terminal. You're like, I've never even opened that before, Corbin. What are we doing? Don't worry. Don't click off. This is actually really easy. I know terminal can be scary sometimes, all right? Let's just first go ahead and create our project. all relevant terminal commands can be found within that Google Docs. So I'm going to go ahead and copy and paste using the exact same step flow, explain the context, and proceed. So obviously our first thing here is the directory. We're going to use mkdir squiggly / and your directory. So let's go and name it. This is important. I'm going to name my directory Web Cafe Land. Whatever you name it, this is going to be it forever. You could change it. It gets difficult. Just name it something you like. For me, Web Cafe Land. Boom. Now let's go ahead and actually reference that in the terminal. To do so, we're going to do cd squiggly / Web Cafe Land. Command C, delete, Command V. Now before I hit enter here, copy it. Why are we copying it? We're going to use a little cheat sheet for our terminal commands. We get used to them, understand them, copy, paste them over. This will make more sense. On Mac OS, it's called stickies. On Windows, I have no clue. Someone in the comments let them know. But for now, we're going to paste this. As this is our directory, I'm going to remove that little bolding, which means that we're going to be referencing this a lot in the future. So it's always nice just to have a little cheat sheet. Boom. First thing in our cheat sheet, hit enter. Notice how within our terminal command now, it actually leads to that specific directory. So far, so good. Once we're in this directory, we're going to go ahead and make a VS Code project with it. And this is how we're going to import all of our stuff. So all we need to do is do code dot. Hit enter, and then watch this. Or it's going to pop up here, not there. So there we go, though. We are so far, so good. We are in our new VS Code project, which is Web Cafe Land. Step 2 here is done. You just completed step 2. That's it. Set up VS Code project. Boom. Good to go. Now let's go ahead and install React. To install React, it's pretty simple. We're just going to copy this. Make sure we're in our directory. How do I know if I'm in the directory, Corbin? It's right there. If you're ever out of a directory, let's say you create a new terminal window, go ahead and grab that original command, cd, hit paste, enter, and you're back at it. Let's install React though. What is React? React is going to be our front end. This is how we're going to create designs and visual elements within the actual website itself. I'm going to hit paste here, hit enter. And this is going to get loaded in here. Nice little load bars. I know this looks crazy. No, this is not the Matrix. No, I'm not hacking something right now. I feel like if we were watching like some cliche hacker movie, they would probably run this on like the screen and you'd be like, oh, this person's up to something. It's like, nah, it's just downloading. Let it download. With all this downloading, you'll see it up there. And funny enough, look at that little message it just left me. Happy hacking. No, chill. We're just making a landing page. We're not doing anything crazy. Boom, done. We've successfully installed the framework for our front end. What's next, Corbin? Let's create this GitHub. And the reason we're creating GitHub, or we're not creating GitHub, but we're creating a repository on GitHub, is that we can push this and put our code in the cloud, which becomes very useful in a lot of different contexts. Here we go. Okay, so we're in GitHub. You're logged in. You made your profile. You have like your name, which for me is Coffee Fuel Bump. Coffee Fuel Bump Ups. Bumpups.com. Check it out. We're going to go ahead and create a repository name. This is how we're going to reference it when we are making our entire Git flows. For me, I just like to keep it the same name. So we're going to do Web Cafe Land. For you, it would be whatever yours is. We're going to paste it in here. And because of the fact that this is going to be your website for your business, you're going to want to select private here. You don't want anyone else to see your code. Create new repository. So far, so good. Now we need to actually set up our underlying repository and connect it to our VS Code project. Now, all this kind of looks crazy, but don't worry, we'll make it simple. Start off with a simple command of git init. No, we're not Australian. No, I'm not from the UK. Init kind of crazy, mate. Shrimp on the barbie. I haven't been to Outback Steakhouse in a long time. I think I need to go back. They have like a really good filet mignon. Once we do git init, our Google Doc asks us to do a very simple commit here. So we're going to go ahead and do echo. This is going to create a README file. Also, I'll go ahead and explain this a little bit more. So this is going to create a README file. We're also trying to basically create our first commit here, which shouldn't work right away because it's a private repo, we need to add a little bit of like, hey, we're the actual person that owns this and no one else can push to it. This will make more sense. First off, just grab that code or terminal command and paste it. Once we've done that, we've added our README file. The README file is like their kind of like, how do you start using React? Like, what's going on here? In reality, I can go like this and be like, I want some coffee. All a README file is that if you pass this to another developer, you can use it as a reference, basically. Like, if you've installed stuff, you probably know what a README file is. Like, the one I use for my main software is pretty funny what we have in there. Let's go ahead and actually connect to Git, though, from now. Now, for this next command, we're going to do a little bit of copy and pasting. I'll explain why. Go ahead and copy this. And for now, I'm going to just add it to the bottom. I'll delete this once like this video comes out. But just make my life easy. You're going to go and paste it and notice what it's asking for. So the first thing it's asking for is your username. Your username is your GitHub username, which is over here. So for me, it's that. For me, it's coffee bump or coffee fuel bump. So I'm gonna come over here, I'm gonna paste. Don't worry about the link, or I'll make it unlink. Paste. Now the Git or your repo, we come back over here, is going to be the Web Cafe land or your name. So that was what we identified as the repo when we created the repo. Like when I hit that little create repo button, that's what it is. Paste. Now we got to add an origin for where this is coming from. So we're going to go ahead and add our username here again, coffee fuel bump, whatever you are. We're going to go ahead and add your personal access token. This next part, I know for a fact, is going to get the most amount of replays months, if not years from now, because what I'm about to show you gets annoying if you forget how to do it. But don't worry. We're going to come up to our developer profile here, and we're going to go ahead and hit settings. In our settings here, we're going to go down to developer settings. Here, we're going to go ahead and go to personal access tokens. We're going to go to fine-grained tokens. For some clarity, all we're doing here is basically making it so that GitHub understands that on our local machine or our laptop or your desktop, it understands that you actually own the ability to access that code within the cloud. Think of it as quite literally your password, quite literally a key to a door. If you didn't have access to this personal fine-grained token, then you wouldn't be able to access your repo. So we're going to go ahead and hit generate new token. Put in your password. Now this is why I know this is going to be the most replayed part of this video, because the way the security works when it comes to this is that this token will expire. Therefore, we need to reuse or create a new token and then put it back into our terminal. Knowing this, you can set to 30 days, 90 days, 60 days, or indefinite. Choose your amount. For me, I'll go with 60. Token name. We'll do Web Cafe land token. Description, add it if you want. For the repository access, let's choose the repository that's relevant to. For us, it's going to be the Web Cafe land. This is the repository we just created in today's video. Scroll back if you forgot. For the permissions, everything. Everything, Corbin, everything. So for every single one of these, I'm not going to show me doing it, but we're going to go ahead and just put the max amount of access. Why are we doing this, Corbin? This is because this is your code. This is your project. So you want to basically be able to do everything that can be done when accessing your code. Therefore, let's make this all read and write. Account permissions, same deal. Read and write. By the end, you should see something like 27 permissions for your one repository, 14 account permissions, generate token. Now, I might have to blur that out just because it's my token. But for you, you're going to see a huge string here. It's going to start with GitHub here. You're going to hit copy. Extremely important. Don't lose this. If you go out of this page, you won't be able to see this token ever again. So I suggest you copy it and know where you're putting it. Let's go ahead and put it back over to that Google Doc. Well, actually, I can't because then people can roll back. So I'm actually going to have to move that entire text to something else. So I'm going to copy this. Before I add that token, let me just add the last thing here so we can push it over. So your username, same deal. Your repo, again, is the name of the repository you made in Git. So I'm going to paste it here. Then just paste in your access token. You're going to simply come over here and paste. Now for me, there's going to be a section here that's just like completely white. That's because I'm still protecting the access token, but just paste. It should have all your relevant information in. And then all you have to do is hit enter. I went ahead and hit enter a couple more times so you don't see my access token still, but you should get a message like that basically we have successfully created this new branch. And what you'll notice is that all the information that we had in that branch shows up here as well. So there we go. We have access to everything that we created with that VS Code so far. So let me just do one push with you so you can understand how you take local code, push it to the cloud. And I think the easiest way to do that is let's update this README. Two major things I want you to note here. When you make a change to a file, you'll notice a couple things. First thing you'll notice is that you'll get a little one here that tells you there's been a change based off the original code. Okay, so we haven't saved yet to GitHub. The second thing you'll notice is that there'll be a little bit of an asterisk here. That tells us that something's different with the file than our original branch. Just to clarify this a little bit more, if I Command C this, and I go back to what the README originally said, which was this, notice how, and I hit save, notice how that one goes away, the main doesn't have the asterisk anymore, and the README isn't yellow. Basically, what's happening here is what we see here. Therefore, there's nothing to change. There's nothing to push. Y'all are good. But let's go and do a push together so you can understand how to push. I'm going to hit Command A, Command V. I want some coffee. Do you want some coffee? It's weird. I find the best coffee is typically at like diners, like really good breakfast areas, right? Corned beef hash, maybe some pancakes sometimes, maybe not. Usually it's corned beef hash, sourdough toast, under easy on the eggs, straight coffee. It's even better if they give me a pitcher. You need a little water on the side too. That is the way to start your day. With us changing the README here, we're going to come back to our terminal. And you're going to do your first commit here. If you have never done a commit before, you're about to see it here live. You're about to see it here live. So what we're going to do is this. This is how we push a new save. We're going to do git add dot git commit -m and then quotation marks. This is how we're naming it. This is how it shows up as like a new push to the branch. This will make sense once I push it. New readme. And this can be anything. Quotation mark. Tells you that there has been a change, et cetera, et cetera. We're going to say git push origin. And this is going to be pushing to the branch. And right now you can see the branch's name is main. So I just got to do main. And boom. What just happened, Corbin? Come back over here. Reload this. First thing you'll notice is that now the most recent branch is new readme. I clicked that. What happened to new readme? Oh, we deleted everything in the readme and we just added I want coffee. I guess someone wants coffee, but there you go. We've successfully just pushed a new change to our branch together. Now, if anything I just described there is like super confusing or you're like, Corbin, what's a branch? I want you to think of branches as like we have our main branch, right? This is what we're going to use as like the main thing the website's going to see. If we ever want to make features past this, typically we make new branches. We call those new branches a specific feature name, such as add footer. Then we will merge that add footer branch to the main branch so that we have a stable main branch. We'll get into it. Don't worry. In this lesson series, I'll walk you through step by step. And on top of that, if there's anything that just happened in that entire flow that you're like, what the heck just happened? Ask that ChatGPT chat I just had, or I showed you earlier, like the one I shared. And what you'll notice is that once we push, if I click this, it all goes away. Main's regular, not yellow. I want some coffee. Boom. Number 3 is done. We have successfully connected our GitHub to our VS Code. Now let's go ahead and install Firebase. Now, before we do that, actually, let me show you that it works and that we have a front end, which is not connected to Firebase, and we can do some cool stuff. So in order to do that, we're going to come back to our terminal. Usually what I like to do is create a new terminal for the use case of what you're about to see right now. And what you're about to see right now is if we run this website on our local machine. When I say local machine, anytime I say local, I'm referencing your actual computer has zero access to the internet. And the idea here is that if I gave you this URL, localhost 3000, you wouldn't be able to see what I see because it's ran on my machine. With any prompt, when communicating with your project, you're going to start that CD. That's why we created this cheat sheet. So let's add another thing to our cheat sheet. The additional thing we're going to add to our cheat sheet is npm start. What this does for us is this is going to launch it in a web page for us to play around with, and it's going to be local. So I do npm start, hit enter, boom, starting development server. What you'll notice is that in the URL itself, which I can't really zoom in well here, you'll see localhost 3000. So let's add to our cheat sheet again. Anytime you're developing not to an actual website link that everyone can access, we're going to do localhost 3000 as this is going to be our ability to create edits on the go. Let me show you what I mean. Now, this is going to be our first line of code together. What? We're going to go to app.js. Now, right now, you might be like, how the heck did you know that? Don't worry. This is basically what we're deploying. This is how you will deploy the front end. This is what's referenced. We're going to create other files here. But all I want you to look at right now is to understand the utility of a local machine. So right now it says edit src app.js and save to reload. And that's actually quite literally what we're going to do. But the idea here is this. It says that right now, right? Watch how fast we can make it instantly change. So we go like this. I'm going to minimize that real quick. And if I say, nah, I'm good. Boom. That's the utility here. Instantaneous changes to see instantaneous reactions of what our front end would look like. Got it? Now that you know that, in order to stop it from building to localhost 3000, you either force quit your terminal or alternatively format its Control-C. This will stop any process. And we're done. Therefore, if I come back to that exact same URL, you'll see the site cannot be reached. Now let's go ahead and install Firebase. Copy. We're going to go ahead and paste npm install Firebase. This is going to give us the dependencies and the packages that are required to show up here for our use of Firebase as a project. What can you do with Firebase? Storage, hosting, functions, a ton of stuff. Hit enter. We are loading in. What you'll notice is that when we install Firebase, it's going to show up in our package lock.json and our package.json. It'll show up like this. This is where we install dependencies. For example, if you were to install if you were to install Stripe, it would show up here as well. This is the version right here, and this is the underlying package we're installing or dependency. Now that we've installed Firebase, let's actually create a Firebase project that we can reference and use within our project. Now that we're over in Firebase here, we're going to create our own new project. For you, the user interface is probably going to look different because you probably haven't created a project yet. For me, I already got one. We're going to hit add project. To start off here, we need a project name. I'm going to keep it simple. I'm going to use the same name I've been using across this tutorial, which is Web Cafe Landing. I'm going to hit continue. It's going to ask whether you want Google Analytics enabled or not. I think if you're making a website, you probably do. So I'm going to hit continue. Make sure that is selected. Make sure you check all the relevant information it's requesting here. Create project. We are loading in to our project that will make it $0 a month and no more website fee. Oh yeah, it's ready to go. Let's jump in. Continue. We are in our Firebase project here. Let's go ahead and add some side tabs right here. They'll become more relevant in future tutorials. So we're going to go to build here. Let's add Firestore database. Let's add functions. Let's add hosting. Don't worry. Right now we're just going to deal with hosting and actually creating this project over here. So let's go ahead and select web. What's going to be your web app name? Let's do Web Cafe Landing again. Web Cafe Landing. And you'll notice there's already an option to set up hosting with it as well. Because that's the whole purpose of this lesson, we're going to do that. We're going to do Web Cafe Landing, that's fine. Register app. Once you do that, you're going to get a code block that's going to be relevant for you. Now, this is blurred out because obviously this is private information, but you'll also be provided with a hosting URL that we'll actually be able to push our code to on a live web browser. We went ahead and already did the first step here. Let's do the second step. Coming over to our next command line here, we're going to do torch src firebase.js. This is just going to create a file for us to put all this relevant information in. Command V, enter, boom. With this firebase.js file, let's copy over that code it just provided. As I referenced in the Google Doc, same deal, same situation, but all your variables are going to be there. Now, I noticed one thing that doesn't show up in the Google Doc, but it does show up here is your analytics, which will be your measurement ID, and also just analytics, get analytics app. That's all you have to do for now, though. Paste it in. You'll learn further lessons of how to leverage this. Make sure to command save. Now that we have the file structured and we've created a project here, let's go ahead and initialize tools. To do so, we're going to do npm install g Firebase tools. These are what's going to give us the ability to do hosting, functions, and Firestore. Hit enter. As I referenced earlier, if you run into issues, use that ChatGPT chat. And straight up just copy and paste the entire error message from that the terminal message, and it will take you in the right direction. Okay, now that we've installed the tools, let's actually log into our Firebase account so we can access it within our VS Code. All we need to do is this, Firebase log in, enter. I'm actually already logged in, so I'm actually going to do Firebase log out so you can see the process here. Very, very, very important. Anytime you plan on coding, using Firebase, doing anything basically, just start your day by doing Firebase login. Let's add it to the cheat sheet. Add Firebase login, Firebase log out to your cheat sheet, real quick, in and out. Firebase login. When it asks all this information, you're going to say Y, which stands for yes. Once you're here, choose the account that you did this entire setup with. For me, it's contact@webcafeai.com. I'm going to continue. Enter your password. Once you're entering your password, you're going to come down here and hit allow. And you should get a message like that. It'll show as success, logged in as your email, and you're good to go. Now that we're logged into Firebase and it understands that this project exists and we have access to it, we need to initialize it. Initializing in this context is that anytime we want to use a specific feature within Firebase, such as hosting, functions, database, you need to initialize it. You only need to do this once typically. And once you got it going, you got it going. For me, I'm going to do Firebase init. Now you have a ton of different options here. For us, we're going to go ahead and scroll down to hosting because that's what we're doing in today's video. We're going to do hosting, configure files for Firebase hosting, and optionally set up GitHub action deploys. We're going to hit space. Then we're going to hit enter. We're going to select use existing project. We're going to choose our project, which should show up. Web Cafe Landing, Web Cafe Landing. What do you want to use as your public directory? That's going to be this right here. We're going to say public. So we're going to hit enter. Configure as a single page app. We're going to say yes. Set up automatic builds and deploys with GitHub. We'll say no for now. File public/index HTML already exists. Overwrite. We're going to say no. That's very important. And there we go. Once we've done that, you'll notice is that we'll have a new two files here. We'll have the firebase.json and we'll have the Firebase RC. Let's go ahead and see this all working together. So first off, let's come back to our Firebase project. We're going to go to hosting. We're going to get started here. For the most part, this should already be initialized. We actually need to deploy. So let's actually do that real quick. And before we do that, we're actually going to build it first. To build it is npm run build. What does that mean, Corbin? npm run build means in this context, this is like React compiling the front end. This is like the visual element. We're building first. Firebase deploy is like us deploying the back end. Front end deployment, back end development, or back end deployment. So first, let's build our app. It's going to be npm run build. This is different from npm start. npm start is like the local 3000. npm run build means we're building this file into an optimized production build that can then be pushed to our website. There we go. We've successfully built it. This is also the sizing of your app if you're interested. Now, let's go to deploy. Firebase deploy. Early days, this is going to be extremely fast for obvious reasons. You got a small application. As you keep going though, this could take a while. For now though, we've successfully deployed. Let's check out this website. Now, sometimes you're going to error like this where you're getting a white page here, but not an emulator. Typically, this has to be associated with the index.html. Let me go ahead and confirm this first. And while we confirm this, we're going to actually do a little trick here. You can actually run 2 terminal commands simultaneously. So doing npm run build Firebase deploy pushes your entire application. So I'm going to go and paste that, hit enter here. We're going to build it first and then deploy it. And there we go. It worked perfectly. There is one thing you need to change in order for this to actually happen. The issue that was occurring here was that the JSON was referencing the wrong area to build the deployment. So in this firebase.json, you're going to see public here. Switch that to build, and then this should push perfectly. To prove it to you, all we got to do is come to our Firebase here. If you go to hosting, these are going to be previous deployments, and then you can click either of these links. I'll come over here. You click either of these links, it's going to take us to that page. And this is a live URL. This exists on the internet. Now, whether we actually let robots crawl it and cite ML, that's going to be a later conversation. But for now, there we go. We've successfully created a connection between GitHub, VS Code, Firebase, and created it all together to the endpoint of having a deployed Firebase hosting or the website we're going to be building from here on out. Now, I want to point out that if you had questions during this process, talk to that ChatGPT chat. But on top of that, I'm going to go into more detail of what those files represent, what it means to do all this, as I know this may have been a little bit fast and kind of glossing over some of those facts. That's because of the fact that, you're going to have lesson 3, you're going to have lesson 4 to set that all up and understand at a deeper level what every single folder means there, what every single file means there. For now, though, we've successfully done lesson 2 here, where we set up a VS Code project, we've connected it to GitHub, we understand now how to install Firebase and use Firebase hosting. We'll use other stuff in that as well. But for now, we're good to go. That wraps it up, y'all. Make sure to leave a like if you felt like you learned value today. I'm going to make sure I keep this series going. I'll have everything that I referenced in today's tutorial in the description down below. On top of that, my outros for these videos are going to be a little different, as I'm using a different profile to do these videos on my Mac so that, for security reasons, stuff doesn't get cross-wired. This is going to be the playlist. That's going to be a random video. That's going to be my face. Make sure to subscribe. More value to come. And I'll see you in the next video.